Okay, Masterclass series. I wore my earrings. I give less fucks about what I look like, and I like to dress up at the same time. Maybe I will sing the rest of this masterclass while I go to share. Okay, this is always the fun part at the beginning where I'm like, hi. Join us. So I am sharing this into my group. Evolve, Visioning and Self-Mastery. Okay. Hi. Hi, Lynn. Okay, so let's dive right in here, lovies. Should I do this in an accent? I think the best way to release any kind of like fear or shame is to just get really silly. Okay, slow connection, it says that every time, but it doesn't matter. Okay, I'm gonna make this punchy. And also I have some notes. I have my like notes on my computer, and then I have like my random post-it notes of like Leanna, stay on track. And I just want to say, speaking of like veering off track, I'm in my own group, and I work with my own coach, and like hallelujah to like just giving yourself support, right? It's a game changer for me. It's the difference between you seeing me here and me just not showing up. And that's the truth, right? Is like everybody needs something, right? And I think one of our greatest fears is like two things. One is like, do I matter in this world? Or like, am I valuable? Have I really like shown up? Did I do my best? And not in like a self like kind of like beat up way, but just like, did I do the things I said I would do in this particular lifetime that I chose to come here, right? So like, there's that, right? Like, am I here doing the thing, right? But then I think there's this other fear too, even deeper still, which is like, it's all on me, or like I'm alone holding the beliefs that I can, right? And so I just want to like name that, because in the program that I'm in with my coach, I came on, I was like, I future unshame myself like for the future calls coming up where I'm going to be messy and crying and like, somebody tell me everything's going to work out, right? So, you know, I kind of know the processes my system is going to go through as I start to launch my next group program, which is like a big 6-monther, and like, oh my God, what if nobody signs up, and like all the things, right? So, you know, invitation, permission granted to like future unshame yourself at any point, knowing some of the thoughts, feelings, sensations you're going to have when it comes to doing that thing that you said you were going to do. Okay. Permission granted. Okay. Today we're chatting to shame, guilt, releasing fear. Here's the thing. Literally none of my clients ever in the last like however many, like many moons I've been doing this, have ever come to me and been like, hey, I would like to come because I would like to handle and deal with the shame that I carry. Like, we don't name it. We don't name the thing inside we want to heal or release ourselves from as shame. We understand it as something that's holding us back, something that's that we're afraid of. The reality is that shame, and I really want to remember who quoted this, so I will do my best to find it and post it back here. But we understand shame as the thing we know the most about within ourselves, but we don't talk about. We're not allowed to talk about, right? Because shame is like that thing or those things within us that we want to hide from the world, or that we keep in secret, right? And it can be a number of things, from like, I secretly picked my nose, to like, I peed my bed till I was 16, right? It's like, these are not things that we're going to be openly creating a flagship to like see me in all of my parts and humanness, right? But it's the thing that we know is there. It's like, it's not really a monkey on our back per se. That's how fear shows up, or guilt. But like, it's the thing that you know most about yourself that you talk the least about, right? And that's one way to understand it. The other way to understand it is that shame is an explicit and implicit, or in other words, it's a core belief that we took on about who we are when we were really young to not know any better. And that's why when we go to release it, we're looking for that memory or that time in our timeline so that we can deal directly with it. And I'll get a little bit more into that. But the main thing is that shame is different from guilt as well. And I just want to like say that shame is one way to understand it is guilt is like, shoot, I did that thing. Like, you know, oh shoot, I said I was going to call that person and I didn't call them, right? And it's like, oh, there's a bit of guilt there, like, gee. But guilt is something you can do something about. You can fix it. You can amend it. You can, there's a resolution to it through something that you do or say to another person or to yourself. So guilt is something we can relieve by doing something about it. Whereas shame is different. And it's specifically different because shame isn't, I made a mistake. Shame is, I am the mistake. So shame is, as you can imagine, like this non-mobile piece in you until it's mobilized, right? Until we are facilitated into working with it and healing it, right? But shame is that immobile piece within us that isn't going to change simply because we say a few mantras or like we do mindset. And this is one of the big pieces here, and I'm going to talk a little bit more of this either in today's masterclass or you'll see me do content on it, where mindset is never going to be able to reach that place in you where that deeper shame is. It can't touch it because mindset is designed specifically for the mind, right? And shame doesn't sit in the mind. And this is what I want to say about that is that shame, we understand it as a felt experience. We understand it as a feeling. We understand it as an emotion. And I really want to make it very clear. Shame is the hardest feeling to have. It is both the heaviest sensation energetically. It's also something that can like have you feel lightheaded, like you're going to pass out and overwhelm you that way. It has your body language changed when we feel it. You'll notice kids feel this too, is like, don't look at me. And I do this too with my partner if I'm like really in a way with myself. I cover my face, I turn my face away, I can't make eye contact. And that's no different from the way that all other humans hold and try their best to hold and move through shame. So automatically we have this physical reaction where our spine will curve a bit, we'll avert our eyes, we don't really want to look at the person because we don't want to be seen or called out. We can't hold that self-admittance of the belief that shame will try to tell you, you're not good enough, you're not lovable, something's wrong with you, why can't you figure it out, get it together, what's wrong with you, you're such a mess, right? And so all of these voices are shame-inducing, they're contributors to shame, and for some of us, they're the origin of the shame that we hold, right? So I really want to clarify what it is. I also want to clarify how we experience shame in like a very real, straightforward way. So I just kind of described like shame is a thing that like bends your spine, averts your eyes, closes you down, and shuts you off. Shame isolates you. Shame isolates you. It tells you to isolate. Your response is to isolate, right? Your response is to isolate. And so this is why we have to have these conversations. If part of our vision or part of our personal goals in our life and our vision is to be out there consistently, is to be out there and speak our truth and to express our truth and to heal our ancestral lines along the way, if that's part of your work right now, then you can't avoid the reasons why you avoid or you back down. Right? So shame is the thing that will hold you in contempt, really. It'll hold you without allowing you to move in the way that you want to. Okay, so there's the physical reaction. There's also neurological shifts and changes that happen that take you offline. Okay, and I don't mean like, I mean also offline too, like maybe you go offline because you generally genuinely need a social media break. And there's like a lot of healthy aspects to that, right? But it can also be an adaptive behavior we have to like pull away when really it would be in our best interest to learn how to stay, right? And so stress gives us a physical experience, but it also gives us a response that can be categorized and can be, right? So there's lots of nuance to this. We can't compartmentalize and, define every aspect of being human. Like language should and could change and move and be expressive and give us lots of understanding about ourselves, but there are good ways to understand it. So I'm going to kind of stick to some of the basics here, right? Which is shame will give you the almost immediate trigger response to shame is to freeze. Okay? It's to like literally like freeze, like play dead. Okay? And it's a big block, and it'll freeze you and stop you, which means you don't take action. Okay. We can do that for a certain amount of time. Our system will let us freeze for a certain amount of time. For a certain amount of time. When the system can't hold the freeze any longer, for whatever reason, and we don't have to know why, we just have to know we can only be in a certain physical, mental, spiritual mind state for so long, and then our inner system, or the parts we have, if you want to say that, will start to put another adaptive behavior in, or will start to make us do something else. So in other words, you can't freeze forever. Okay? Can't freeze forever. So what happens next typically, often, is that we start to do a fight response. So we fight back within ourselves or other people. I mean, there's also that, right? I know that one well. So we fight back, or we try to run away, flight. We try to like take off. That doesn't mean we like physically, it doesn't mean we physically take off, like get in our car and drive away, or like run down the street and never to return. So there's lots of different ways that we can flight and fly away or run. And then there's lots of ways that we can fight it if we're here. If we're fighting it, it can often look and sound like self beat up. So I'm going to try and fight my own self out of this. Come on, Leanna, get it together. You're better than this. You do this. What is wrong with you? Get going, girl, right? Like whatever that is, right? So we can have that internal fight. It goes on a spectrum too, where it's like a loving kick in the butt, like, girl, come on, right? But that's like against myself, but there's a bit of love in there. All the way to this spectrum that on the other side of it is the heavier and more intense disgust. Like, I can't even look at you. It's like, what is wrong with you? So I deal with disgust, as it were, as it shows up, not like healthy adaptive disgust. That's like, ugh, this is like, this meat has gone bad. Like, ugh, right? Like that. There's like healthy aspects to all of it, right? Like disgust is a very useful thing we have in our system because it keeps us away from like food that's poisonous or whatever, right? Or like people that are bad. But disgust within ourselves, if we notice, because I ask this often to clients, like, yeah, okay, you notice there's a part of you that's got this emotion or sensation, right? Like I'm afraid I'm afraid I'm going to get canceled if I share my truth. Okay. Totally normal fear, by the way. That's like on my list of some of the things I want to like name, right? But it's like, if we get honest, and part of the way we feel toward this, or like a way we feel toward this fear of speaking our truth is like, ugh, I'm just so like annoyed with it. And like, ugh, I will sometimes ask clients like, that sounds like disgust. And sometimes I'll be like, yeah, that's what it is. So shame creates this like web of all other things, right? It's like the host of many other behaviors or beliefs or sensations or actions that we do or don't do. And when we can trace it back to that one place in us, right? And we have lots of different one places. There's not like one thing that if we can pull that from the root, everything is better. It would be lovely, if people make that claim, run, because a garden doesn't exist because it has one root system. A flourishing garden, I should say, and by flourishing, I mean we don't just have one plant in there, because a healthy garden has a myriad of different life forms in it, and that's how the world works. We're not mono, right? So you're a healthy garden, and you have lots of different places where the root systems are growing, and we can change those root systems. It's never just one thing. Okay, so we have that kind of like spectrum when we're fighting it. Okay, let's talk about flight. Let's talk about the ways that we avoid or run from anything that brings up embarrassment, shame, like, oh my God, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable, something's wrong with me, why can't I figure this out? I'm not smart enough, like everybody else has it together and I never will. Why can't I ever get there? There's got to be something, like I'm the problem. Okay. So for flight, so like I said, your almost immediate response almost every time is to freeze, is to stop, is to avert your eyes and look away, or play dead. Do nothing. Freeze. Completely freeze. And again, like I said, we can only freeze for so long. Okay. So if we don't fight it, then we run from it. Okay. And if we're running from it, this is where our intense inner protective mechanisms will then take over. They'll take the helm, they'll take the wheel, they'll take over, they'll kind of direct our own inner traffic, if you will. Okay. Which actually looks like typical avoidant behaviors or addictions, right? Ask me how I know all this. There is no way that I'm not standing, but sitting here. There's no way I'm sitting here today having never experienced or go through any of my maladaptive behaviors in the world. There's no way that I don't have addictive behaviors or that I don't do things to take my own self out of a shame spiral or what I perceive is going to be one. Okay, so let's normalize that we can, and I really want to say this, I really want to normalize that you can be teaching other people a skill or a way of being or helping them heal or helping them be better in the world in whatever way that is, and still be doing your own work in the background. Like, I need you to understand that that's how it works. And we need more people speaking that truth. We need more healers and leaders acknowledging that they're doing their own work as well. Okay, this is the reality we live in, but it isn't really, like, the curtains aren't drawn back enough for us to see. Okay, so there are many things that I have worked on. There's many things I've healed and cleared in myself. And there are many other things I'm still working on. And that doesn't make me less qualified or less of an expert. It makes me human. And as far as I understand, most of us would like to hire humans, not robots. Okay, so please, if you have that, this is like, sometimes we need to borrow somebody else's belief in order to like really integrate it into our own being. So I just want to, like, if you want to borrow that belief, please do, is that you can be doing your work and be working on that same work you do with other people at the same time. Okay, it makes you working you are working towards excellence, aren't you? So that is excellence. Okay. So the freeze, now the flight. You have addictive behaviors that you do. Can we normalize this? Please. I am tired of having these conversations quietly in the background and even within myself. Okay? Can we normalize this? We all have addictive behaviors, or I don't even say addictive behaviors, but we all have intense behaviors, intense things that we do to try to take us out of the feeling that shame will bring, because it's the hardest one to hold. So what an amazing thing we do. We have something, I was just hearing this story. I just really enjoy listening to stories. I think it's how we understand ourselves, and I think it's how we tell the world who we are. It's your story. So if you're struggling with any kind of content, like, tell a story about yourself. So like, I'm going to borrow somebody else's story for like a really quick second. and I'm going to Cole's notes it, which is this young woman was extremely traumatized as a child. Okay. We don't have to get into the details. You can understand that trauma for children is very hard. And it's a lifelong pain and burden until we work with it and heal it. Okay. So this young woman had something happen to her, young girl. And as you can imagine, didn't get the support, didn't feel safe. So that's what shame will do, right? Shame will keep your secrets hidden so that you've internalized them so much that you take them on, because isn't that easier? If you can just hold them and you can make it better, or you can just like take it and hold it because it's too much of a burden to put on other people, or like I can't rock the boat or whatever it is, I'll just figure it out on my own. That's how shame operates. Okay, so let's just unhook ourselves from that, which is easier said than done, I understand. So that's what trauma will do, is it keeps your secrets for you until you start to internalize it. And so this young woman had nobody to talk to. Nothing helpful ever came to her. And in fact, I think part of the way the story goes is that she actually had to go into a home for those suffering from psychiatric ailments at the time. Who knows what they were called at the time, right? But like, she went mad. Okay. And then she got better. But she got good enough so that she could be released from this insane asylum, right? Which is probably what it was called at the time. Well, cue her kind of still being young, but old enough to be out on her own, and somebody gives her some alcohol. And what does she do? She drinks it. And what does she notice? Whew, I have this sensation of lightness. I have this sensation of not caring. I have this sensation that I've never felt before. And oh my God, isn't this so helpful? I'm going to use this when I can't handle everything else, or when it's too much for me. So this was her adaptive behavior. The jargon is her maladaptive behavior, but like, what a harm reduction. Rather than getting to some ideation within herself of like taking myself out of this world and unaliving myself, what did she do? She used this liquid to help her stay here and be okay. Now, you and I both know that there's toxins in alcohol. We know that it has like negative effects. All of this is true. I kind of like roll my eyes because it's like, oh, guess what my monkey on the back is? But like, it works, or it worked. It works for a time. But like, that's how we're working to handle things. That's how our system is setting us up. So healing in its essence is really getting to know what's actually happening inside of you, becoming conscious to it in a way that you've adapted yourself to push it down and to lock it away. Because not only is it hard for you to handle, the world can't handle it. Which is how shame operates in our own mind. Okay, so if you can't handle it, then the world can't handle it, then what are we supposed to do but like lock it away? Okay, so let me just give you a quick example. This is like, I'm laughing as I say this because I do this all the time. It's like, oh, I've got company coming over. Great. All of my laundry in the dryer. Like all the stuff I haven't dealt with in a room that I'm going to close the door on. All the extra stuff, grab a box, put it in there, stick it in my summer kitchen. My summer kitchen is like off and away. Nobody's going to see it. And so when people arrive, they see this like very clean, put together house, but that's not actually what's happening, right? I've got all this other stuff that hasn't found its place, that I haven't put away, that I haven't dealt with, which is fine, right? Like, this is a metaphor for a reason. It's not the real thing, but it gives you an idea that that's part of what we do. When something is too much, our system is extremely smart and puts it away. Okay, so healing is being willing to go to the dryer and take out the laundry. It's being willing to go to that box and pull each thing out that I put away because I hadn't dealt with it yet. Okay, so that's when we talk about releasing shame. The other thing I want you to think about is like, shame is this piece in you that's, again, very, very deep. It doesn't sit on the surface, but you know that it's there and you think about it all the time. Okay, I understand that that's kind of counter, like they kind of don't match those two things, but turns out the world operates like that. good and evil, right? Like, it's like you have something in you that you know is there. You know about it every single day. You think about it. It's a movie that plays out when I've healed the shame, this is what I'll be, and this is who I'll be, and this is what I'll have, and this is the world I'll live in, and this is the stuff I'll do every day. You have that movie of when I release all this, this is what it's going to look like. And so the same as this realization that it's there, that movie plays too. So it's the thing you have the most, but you don't talk about. You're not allowed to talk about, right? And so healing is like naming that and bringing that forward. Okay? But, and to get there, I want you to think of it like, okay, so if visualizing helps, you can think of it like this. You can think of it like a line. And so the line goes from my kind of heart center, for example, out to this screen here, right? And there's a line that goes here. And here is where my shame sits. Here is where the deepest, darkest secrets I hold exist. Here is the place within me that when I feel afraid, this is because of it. It's because of this getting triggered. That's what fear is. Okay. Humans are smart. You're very smart. I'm very smart. We're all quite brilliant because over time, over our lifetime, in this lived lifetime and possibly in previous lifetimes, we built up protective mechanisms or protectors. Okay, we built up protective mechanisms. And one of the first ones that we will kind of resonate with, or typically, is your hurt is usually very young. Okay, and I'm talking anywhere from like pre-verbal to like 6-7 years old. After around that time, and like this is general, okay, so like take this with a little grain of salt, that it's like not everything is like on this exact thing, right? But generally speaking, 8 is when we become aware of the world. We become aware that we're people in the world. We see ourselves differently. The world becomes not as safe of a place. If we didn't already know that, we're going to learn it now. And so then we have this like 8 to 12-year-old, this like pre-adolescent that will start to toughen up, and that will develop toughening behaviors to protect that little one. Okay. After that, Q, you guessed it, your inner teenager. So from like 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and those are the fierce ones. They are usually rage against the machine, to borrow a little bit from my teenage years. They're angry, but they're also holding all the hurt that came before them. They don't just pop up out of nowhere. They went through the hurt, but they're there to tell the world to go F itself. Because you don't know who I am. You don't see the good in me. You screwed us over. You left us alone. You didn't help us when we needed it. You abandoned us. So we're going to make sure that doesn't happen again. And we're going to develop toughening mindsets to help us with that. Okay. Then after that, we can keep going. And I want to kind of put that there because we develop all these other extra protective mechanisms too. Okay. So healing is removing those protectors one at a time so that we can get to the place where the hurt actually began. It's almost like, what, I don't know if you watched like The Office, but there was like a scene where they were all doing a standoff. It was like Michael and, anyways, it was just like a standoff between a bunch of them, and they're all like holding their guns at each other. And that's often how protectors will deal with each other, is they'll divert your attention to the pain, so they'll just blame each other, or they'll get mad at each other, right? So the part of you that's like, let's do better, like little sunshine glasses, let's smell the roses, and like, isn't the world a good place? Look over here, like they're so happy and joyful, and like they're trying to get you to see the good in it. What's the lesson? What's the learning? They're often the ones that like will over spiritualize, but at the same time gaslight you too, right? Okay, so you like you better believe that they don't like that inner teenager. I see this time and time again. right? They don't like that inner teenager, because what does that inner teenager do? It takes a stand for you. I'm not putting up with any of that fluff that you talk about. There's like real situations here, and you're avoiding them. You don't have any, like, you're too fluffy, or you can't hold anything, right? So they fight amongst each other. And part of that is so that then you don't have to like know about this. Okay. So do you see how it operates? It's like very, you know, complex, but also hopefully I'm like making it less complex and less confusing and overwhelming at times. Okay. So I will leave you with this. Oh yeah. Oh, actually, I have to tell you really quickly, because one of my things was the brain. Okay. I love that I made all these notes and I haven't looked at any of them. Okay. The brain, it's real. It operates. It's telling me to lift my arm. I can like open this because of my brain. I can feel things because of my brain. I can remember things because of my brain. I can do things because of my brain, okay? And shame takes you offline faster than anything else. Shame takes you offline. And when I say it takes you offline, I mean it takes you offline here in your frontal lobe, which is in charge of decision making. If your response is, I don't know, I'm going to be a bit cheeky here. It's like, you know, that's not true. You do know. Okay. What are you afraid will happen if you say what you do know, right? Okay, so shame will take you offline. It'll shut down your frontal lobe. It makes it harder to think clearly. You know, you have foggy brain. It's like that. It makes it hard to think clearly, makes it hard to make decisions, organize information. So yes, ADHD, neurodiversity, like all of these things are real, okay? I want to like say that they are very real, okay? Brains operate differently. We take information in differently. But sometimes we have a hard time organizing ideas because we went offline here, because we have unacknowledged shame in our system that we need to clear, or fear, or whatever it is, okay? So it does affect the frontal lobe. The other part is that there's parts of your brain like deep inside. I want to try to avoid the jargon of like language, you know? And also, I can't always remember it, but I know it. I know there's a part deep in the middle of your brain, and it holds memory, and it holds it in an emotional capacity. For some of us, it holds it as a visual memory, so we can remember what it looked like while we were there, or it can activate our senses. Like I remember the smell, I remember the taste, I remember what it felt like, right? So, but it doesn't give you like a written, it doesn't give you words to the memory. We don't have, it's not like, here's the memory and like, here it is in a script, okay? And even if people had said things to you that created that memory, like what is wrong with you? It's the feeling of somebody saying that to you that it holds, okay? And so if that's true, if memory doesn't have necessarily a written story, but a felt story, right? If that's true, then it makes sense that we deal with our memory emotionally. Okay? Because that's what, like, if you think of something really painful that happened to you, your brain recognizes it as happening right now. So if I think back to like, really hard moments, it's like it's happening right now. And the same is true for joyful moments. My body will have a visceral reaction. Chemical reaction. Okay, so I just want to really remind you that there's also that part of the discussion too. And that when we go offline, if you're having a hard time organizing information or you feel very scattered, right? Well, you've gone offline. And that's a way of making it through each day, is to go offline. So it's not happening because there's something wrong with you. It's happening because that's the best way to operate, is to go offline. Right? Shame diminishes our capacity to handle the challenges in life. That's just how it works. Right? It disrupts our ability to be fearless, or to have courage, or to take a stand, or to speak our truth, because it holds us in like this fear. Okay, I'm going to end it here. Please let me know what resonated. I really, really enjoyed this. I've enjoyed my earrings. Hopefully they haven't given you like go crazy watching them sparkle and twinkle. I will take them out. I am doing a 6-month group program. I am going to work my darndest to make it both amazing, which it's going to be, and then also with some pretty juicy payment plans and investment levels that you can come in at, while also making sure that, hey, it's good for everybody, including myself, right? Because that's what you get to do. That's what you get to do. You get to also take care of yourself. Okay. Mwah. Big love, big hug. I am still taking on one-on-one clients. I do have literally one more spot left for a bit. That'll change, but I would hop on a conversation. We can at least get that conversation started and just see what that is. And then you can like sit with it and simmer with it and marinate in it and then feel into all the possibilities. Okay. Big love, big hug. Go out and be amazing. And I love you all.